to be with us for this webinar. And particularly, I'd like to thank the parents who have sent in their questions. They're very good questions. I hope we're going to get to them all before we're done. First, we have a question from Samantha. She says, my child is 2 years old. He's now showing that he can read, recognizing sight words without a picture. He quickly says whatever words I show, even ones I have not taught him. I didn't think I would get to this point so quickly. What should my next step be before he gets bored? Well, first of all, Samantha, you've obviously done a great job because, you know, you're in a great place when your child is already intuiting new words that he hasn't seen before. That's just wonderful. So congratulations on the job you've done up to now, because it sounds like he's doing great. You're very smart to say, well, you know, I want to stay a few steps ahead of him, because if I don't, you know, he may get tired of what I'm doing, because it's easy for you and I. We like a nice rut. We like to do the same things day in and day out and feel comfortable with what we're doing. But for a kid, they get up every day and what's new? What's next? Let's move on. They don't want to stay in the same place. So you're right to ask this question. I think the answer to this question is almost certainly new material. You probably want to add new words more rapidly. Maybe whatever frequency you're using right now, if it's 3 times a day for 5 days, maybe you drop that frequency to 3 times a day for 3 days, and then 2 times a day for 2 days. So you can start to drop the frequency as the pathways grow. As the visual and auditory pathways are used, then they grow. And when they grow, then the dynamic you're going to change most rapidly would be the dynamic of frequency. You're going to keep the intensity, the word's big, but you can start to drop frequency. The other big answer, and maybe this is a longer range answer to your question, is books. Because really what's in it for your kid is a book. And it doesn't matter whether he's a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 15-year-old, or an 80-year-old. The end goal is a book, because that's where the pleasure is. So you can make right now, if you haven't done so already, you can start making single word books. And that can be a way of introducing 10 new words. And those books are made so you have a single word, then you turn the page, there's the picture. Then another single word, turn the page, there's a picture. So single word books, you could be making couplet books. You could make 3-word phrase books right now. So start making books. And of course, the simple books will have a shorter shelf life. Maybe there'll be books he'll look at for a few weeks and he's done with them. The books that actually have a story and a beginning, a middle, and an end, he will certainly develop a love for those books, and those books may have a much longer shelf life. But the trick here is to have many books. And these, of course, are homemade books. You're going to make them yourself just for him, and you're going to develop a beautiful little library of these books. Some of them, the brand new ones, you're going to keep as surprises, but once you've introduced a book to him, then it goes on his shelf, and he can come back to that shelf. Maybe you're doing something else or making new materials. He's got his books. He can go and read those books. So that's really the big answer. The big answer is you'll never lose with a book. That's for sure. So keep up the good work and tell us how you do. Mother says, my daughter is 5 years old. She loves reading. I started with the cards with single words with her 3 months ago. But she also reads words by herself and sight words, and she loves books. She was doing books even before we started the program. How do I strike a balance between your reading program and reading books that she already loves? Well, there shouldn't be, I wouldn't think of it as striking a balance. I think your daughter's 5 years old. She's going to want books. So I would actually work in the other direction. I would start with the book. I would go to the library, get all the books that you think will interest her, take her with you, have her choose the books. And these may be books that are at a 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade level or higher. Let her choose based on the content that interests her. And then take those books home. And you are going to steal the content and make homemade books for her out of those books. You're going to say, okay, here are the 20 brand new words in this book that she doesn't know. Then you can teach those words and keep those words actually tucked in the back of that book. Then you steal the content from the commercial book, bump up the print size, hopefully on the word processor, it makes it much easier. And this way, you can supply her with wonderful books that are much higher level material, but also big print size. Because right now, I suspect, if you were only confined to those books that have the correct print size, commercial books with the correct print size for your child, the content is going to be too low. It's going to be too predictable. It won't be the thing she wants. So right now, everything has to be driven by what she likes. If she likes ballet and dancing and flowers and whatever it is, you find out, make a list of the things she loves the best. And then that's what you're going to go on the hunt for. And also, of course, if you're a creative person and you love to write, then start writing books for her. The other thing you can do is have her dictate a story to you. Then you write it down and make a beautiful book out of it and keep adding to that book. I remember one of our kids, when she was about 4 or 5, she started dictating books to her mom, and it became a series, 10 books, and then it became 20 books. And then she actually started writing the book. She had a baby brother. She said, let's make these books for my baby brother. So in the end, she created a series of some 40 or 50 books for her little brother. What a great thing to do at age 4 or 5. So the creative process can be partly you, and it can be partly her. But don't think you have to follow some rigid path of X amount of single words, X amount of couplets. If your child is into books, go with books, work backwards, and say, well, here's the book I want to do, but to do this book, I would have to have 30 words that she doesn't have right now. I would take some of the classics in English, a book like The Wind in the Willows. I know myself, I loved that book when I was a little kid. This would be a great book to steal the text and the beautiful little line drawings and make that available so a 5-year-old can read it. Right now, the only thing missing there is the big print. So bump up the print and steal from the classics, and you're pretty much home free. Keep up the good work. It sounds like you're doing a great, great job with your daughter. Mom says, this is from Laura, I started teaching my baby to read at 3 months. We are still using single words, but we're getting close to couplets and then 3-word sentences. So I'm preparing the material with the words that he already knows. My question is, I taught him verbs in a simple present tense, eat, play, walk. But for sentences, I'll need to use the verbs in other tenses. So if I want to put eating or ate in a sentence, I suppose I need to teach him first the conjugated verb as a single word. Is this correct? Well, you know, it's a very sophisticated question, and it shows you have a very good understanding of what you're doing. But the good news is that once we introduce a word like eat, and a child is able to differentiate the word eat from the word play, from the word walk. If we come back in a sentence and say, the elephant is eating the grass, the child has no problem making that leap in the text itself. It's true, we can make a set of verbs that say eating, playing, but you know, when you pull those out and you've already taught eat, kid kind of is like been there, done that. I got the idea. So you will find that kids are more flexible. And remember, when you make a book like that, where you're saying the elephant is eating, the giraffe is sleeping, you're going to read that book many times. Your child is probably going to come back and say, again, mommy, I want to see that book again. So there's a lot of frequency there. And that's really what gets you over what looks like it would be an obstacle to you and I. That's what gets you over that. And the same thing is true of all the little connective tissue in language, like the and to and before. When you put those things into the text, the child quickly absorbs that information. We don't have to teach a whole set of words of the and prepositions and all of those other things. So I hope that makes sense. But it sounds, again, like you're doing a great job. Keep up the good work. It looks like a lot of fun. Here's a mother. She says, I have an 18-month-old boy. We have the book, How to Teach Your Baby to Read. But I'm a mother with a full-time job. And unfortunately, I don't have enough spare time for my child. My question is frequency of showing the words. Is 2 times daily enough to teach a child? Or how to organize our daily program, the number of words, the number of sets, if we have very little spare time. Maybe 3 hours in the morning, maybe 3 hours in the evening. Should I show him 1 word longer for 7 days, for example, instead of 5 days? Well, this question is a very, very good question because it's very tempting, I'm sure. When you read a book like How to Teach Your Baby to Read, and we put out a whole kind of array of delicious things to do with your child, 5 categories of words, 5 words in a category, do them 3 times a day. It's very important that every mother and father who reads the book says, now, is that going to fit with the time I have with my child? Because we really, when we write our books, we write from the viewpoint of the full-time mother or the full-time father. We feel that's the right thing to do. That if we give the big picture, then the full-time mother or the full-time father can look at that and say, okay, this is the ideal way to do this. But we have to, in essence, say to the mother who doesn't have the good fortune to be a full-time mother, you have to be very disciplined. You can't just take a program that's designed for all day and shoehorn that program into an hour and a half in the morning or an hour and a half at night. You know, not long ago, I was lecturing in Singapore. And, you know, Singapore mothers are really known around the world as tiger mothers. And they are tiger mothers. And I mean that in a good sense, not a bad sense. But one of the things that I say to 1,000 tiger mothers when I was lecturing there is, first of all, remember, tigers are very sweet with their little tiger cubs. You know, they don't bite them. They don't harass them. They don't bully them. So if you're going to be a tiger mother, take a look at a tiger mother. They're very sweet and gentle and kind with their little cubs. And when I looked at really the biggest problem for those 1,000 tiger mothers, because after the lectures, they all lined up to ask questions. Their questions were all the same question. Well, I can't get the attention, the interest, the enthusiasm of my child. I hold up the words and he looks away. And I ask each of them the same question. What time are you doing your reading program? And they said, well, I don't get home till 6 o'clock at night. And I said, so you're doing a reading program with an 8-month-old baby at 6:30, something like, yes. And then what? Well, then I have to come back 10 minutes later and do another word. And then I come back to, they are taking a program that's meant to be spread over the whole day, and they're trying to shoehorn it into about an hour. And I said to those moms, I said, my answer to you, you're not going to like. This is not the right thing to do with the time you have with your baby. If you really only have a little time from the time you arrive home at night to when that baby goes to sleep, because babies don't go on mother's schedule, they have to sleep, then you shouldn't be running after your baby with a bunch of cards. You should get home, you should hug your baby, you should kiss your baby, you should talk to your baby. And when you get done that, you should start hugging your baby again and kissing your baby again. And you got to get to know your baby, because you've been away from your baby all day long. Your relationship with your baby can't be about a bunch of reading cards. We love the reading cards. We love the reading program. It's a wonderful program. But it's not the only thing. And if the only time you have with your child is the hour before your child goes to bed, then you better spend that time cuddling and kissing and hugging. It's not the time to be coming at your child with a lot of reading words. Maybe get out a nice little book, and together you read a book together. But in essence, you have to be able to look at your life and say, how can I do whatever I do with my child so that I'm doing the highest quality thing in the best way? What I would say to you, because it sounds like you're pretty much full-time working, if there's any way you can steal 2 real hours in the morning with your child. You know, some mothers work all morning and then they fight to get home so they can get home earlier. I would reverse that. I would fight to have the morning with your child. Fight to be with your child from the time your child wakes up until 11:30. If you could do that, that's the golden time. If you have from wake up to 11:30 or 12, that's the golden time of the day for the child. You can do so much in that time. You and your child will get to know each other. Then you can put in a little reading program. It can go very well because your child will be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and so will you. Then you go off to work, and baby has lunch, nap, downtime, graveyard shift is the afternoon with the baby anyway. And then when you come home, spend that time cuddling, kissing, and putting your child down to sleep. So my wish for you would be somehow to steal morning time. And a lot of mothers have found that they can renegotiate their time just to get 2 hours, 2.5 hours every morning. If you can do that, you could do a bang-up reading program in that time. And again, never try to shoehorn a program into a small space. Yes, your question is right. You could do the words twice a day instead of 3 times. But you know what? You trying to get ready in the morning and throwing words at your kid once, and then you come home in the evening and you're tired and the baby's tired and you're going to show them another time. It's not a good dynamic. It's not fun. It's not fun for the baby. It's not fun for you. It's not the right spirit. So if there's any way to rearrange your schedule, that would be ideal. Absolutely ideal. So it may not be the answer you want, but it is the answer. My name is Louise, and I have the question, when a baby receives a complete stimulation program, then later on as an adult, can he tell at a glance how many dots are on a card just by looking at it? Well, this father is referring to our math program. But again, let me generalize the question a little bit. You know, when you show whether it's reading words or if it's quantity cards, as we would do with dots, or bits of intelligence in our encyclopedic knowledge program, or maybe you introduce foreign language, any of those things you do with a tiny baby. If you just did them in the first year of life, and then for whatever reason, you abandoned them and you didn't do them again, they still would be stimulation for the baby. They still would help grow the brain. But if you came back 6 years later, 8 years later, and expected that that baby would speak that second language or remember some set of bits that you might have shown him when he was 6 months old, the chances are small that he would recall that. I think that's inevitable. But if, on the other hand, you teach those things and introduce them to the tiny baby, and then you continue on and you add layer upon layer, so that in the second year he learns about those bits and why they're significant, and he learns how to add, subtract, and multiply and divide. And in the third year, he starts doing a little bit of playing with a variable in math, and he's now doing books, little books on introductory botany and introductory physiology and introductory history. If, in essence, you're building a program that you're always adding to the information, you're always adding to the level of complexity, then later on as an adult, if you come back, well, can you hold up the 99 dots between the 98 dots to one of those babies, and will they know which is which? I can't really answer that because we don't go around doing that. Occasionally, some member of the media may come and they'll say to one of our staff kids who was raised on the program, you know, what's this, what's that? And one time I remember that exact thing happened, and it was an 18-year-old. And they had pulled out a bunch of dots. They wanted to interview him, which they did. And then they pulled out a bunch of dots. They hadn't told him they were going to do that. And they said, you know, what's this? And I think he said, oh, it looks like 68. He said, I have no idea, but I'm guessing 68. And the member of the media stopped and said, it is 68. No one was more shocked than our student. No one was more shocked. Now, was that a good guess? I don't know. And I don't think he knows either. I think the point is, it's not really important. What's important is that 18-year-old was a superb mathematician. Absolutely superb. Today he's a math teacher. That's what he does. But that was the point of teaching him those dots, not that he would particularly know 98 from 99 when he's 35 years old. So again, I'm not sure if that answers your question, but philosophically, I think the point is how well you can use the information in life to solve problems. And if the question is how well could he use that information as an adult to solve problems, the answer is incredibly well. Well, this is a question from Anna. My baby girl is 7 months old. I've been working on material to start the reading program. I'm excited, but I'm also nervous about it because there's no way to know if I'm doing it right. So here's my question. How do I know when I should move forward to the second step or the third step of the program? Is there a specific amount of words or time that you suggest for each step? I like this question because it gives me an opportunity to say, you know, in the book, we haven't really answered this question. That's why this mother's asking it. It doesn't say in the book, now when you've done 50 words, now you do couplets. And when you've done 50 couplets, now you do phrases. Because we want mother to relax into being the teacher and to not be rigidly tied to a recipe or a formula. The most important thing in your reading program is that it's your reading program, and you're creating it based on what you see on your kid's face. I mean, every mother is going to start her reading program at a different time. Some mothers are going to start at 3 months. Some mothers are going to start at 8 months. Some mothers are going to start at 5 years. So if we gave a formula, it would possibly, that formula wouldn't fit any of those situations. So first of all, mother says, I'm nervous because there's no way to know if I'm doing it right. You know what? If you're relaxed and happy, if you're choosing the best times in the day, if you can see your baby is relaxed and happy, then you're doing it right. You don't need me or anyone to say this is the exact pathway that you need to follow. You're looking at your child and saying, she's enjoying this. This is great. And you know what? The day you say to yourself, oh, I think it would be fun to add some couplets. There's no hard and fast rule. I mean, after you've taught 20 single words, if you can see that there are natural couplets that you could make with those words, make some couplets. Show them. Your child will be highly likely to be interested. And if your child is, you say, oh, she's enjoying couplets, let's add some couplets. So the whole point here is to be enjoying your baby and for your child to be enjoying you. And along the way, you see the thing your child likes, you do more of it. You see something your child is not interested, put it away. You are sculpting this program at every step to your child. You're saying, what's my child's ideal pathway? And by the way, when your next kid comes along, you're going to have to do the same thing all over again, because your next child is going to be completely different. You may pull out the words you did with the baby, and the next kid may have no interest in those words. So every child is unique. There are no two children who are the same. And your child is changing every day. So just because that worked well for you last week doesn't mean it's going to be the right thing for next week. You have to keep changing with your child, and that's a big challenge for mother. Mostly we like to find a way to do things and then keep it the same way. And in fact, that doesn't work. You've got to keep moving on. So don't be so worried. You're your kid's mother. You will know better than I what's the right moment to say, okay, let's do some couplets. That would be fun. And don't be afraid to move on to books. As I was saying earlier, you could do single word books right now. Babies love books. You can do couplet books right now. Mothers tend to spend too long on single words. It's very common for a mother to write and say, well, I've done 500 or 1,000 single words. And we say, how about books? And mom says, oh, no, I haven't gotten to books yet. Well, gee, that's a long runway. I mean, how long can a child be expected to flap his wings and go down a runway before he's allowed to take off and fly? And I think the answer is we don't want him chugging down that runway. We want him flying. So the sooner you can get to a book, whether it's single words, whether it's couplets, whether it's a whole sentence, the better. Because once you get to those books, then you'll see, the more books I make, the happier my child is. Now, mother has a second part to her question. She said, my husband and I are from South America, so we both speak Spanish at home much of the time. And when we go out, we speak English. I've been concerned about which language should I start teaching my baby first. Can I teach both languages at the same time?